This blood plasma storyline is finally about to wrap up. Hey y'all, hey, welcome back to the next episode of the Deep Dive with Toya Creates. We are going over the Friday, May 15th episode of Beyond the Gates. And hopefully this time it records and saves because this is the third time I'm trying this today and I promise I'm tired. Per usual, if you like content like this, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. So let us get into this for a third time. So we had three major arcs going on Friday. It was the blood plasma ring, the cotillion prep, and the Ted and Shanice slash Nicole Vanessa of it all. So, for the plasma ring, we saw Smitty and Jacob meeting at Jacob's motel room, and they are discussing how the impaler is targeting the clinic. Smitty knows this because he had a conversation with Ashley, and she let it slip that Derek does not want Grayson anywhere near the clinic, and so Smitty put two and two together. And so Smitty and Jacob are also discussing if, Leslie has anything to do with it because they are just wondering who else is involved along with Leah. And they're also wondering, what Leah's plans are in terms of stealing plasma or using the Phoenix Street Clinic to push her plasma. We don't know. So they're looking at Leslie as a potential what do you call it? Not compliance. Child, I'm tired. They look at Leslie as being potentially involved, and Smitty is unsure of Leslie because he's just like, well, her MO is usually vengeance, and she doesn't need any money right now, but she's still on the list. And then they are also thinking Joey potentially, since Joey has had his men tailing Smitty and Joey wants to know what's going on in that regard. And Jacob's just like, I don't know, because if Joey, number one, it's messy for Joey because he's involved with Vanessa, and this clinic was opened in dedication of Vanessa's deceased husband, Doug. And Jacob's like, well, if Joey was really on to us, he would have offed us by now. So, they are just contemplating everyone else's affiliation with this, and they are looking at maybe Leslie, maybe Joey. In any event, the case should be near to being closed because Ren also calls Jacob and tells him that there is going to be a meeting with the big bosses the next night. And so this is it, y'all. Jacob is finally going to see who this impaler is. So, hopefully, the case actually does close in the upcoming week. So, Jacob relays this to Smitty as well. He's still there, so he hears what's going on. And Smitty offers to basically go to the location of the meetup after the cotillion just to help Jacob out. And Jacob's like, no, spend time with your family because after this, I'm going to be able to spend time with mine. So remember that. So then we also see Leah and Grayson at the hospital. Leah has a new assignment for Grayson. She don't want to hear nothing from him, to the contrary, point blank period, because Grayson's tried to explain to her why it's going to be hard for him to do what she is asking at the clinic because Derek already hates me, doesn't trust me, and he's checking for me. And basically what you are asking me to do is nearly impossible. I think she wants him to steal some blood. So Liam's like, Leah is like, yeah, whatever. You clearly didn't learn the lesson from being shanked. You need to do what you were told. This is a matter of life and death. Your life. So you better do what I'm saying. And that's that on that. So then Naomi has accompanied Ashley to work. And Shanice is like, what is this? Bring your bestie to work day? Joking. But no one makes a fuss out of it. So Naomi is there so she can help keep an eye on Ashley and make sure nothing goes left because they know that Leah is not to be trusted and Leah has been threatening. So Naomi sets up shop right in that reception area and she brings some work and that's where she's gonna be. I'm like, okay. Um, let's see. So then Shanice quickly asks Ashley, like, how everything's going with Grayson, and she don't talk about it too much. And uh Ashley's also checking up on Shanice and Ted. We'll get into that later. Not much is said there. So then Ashley also wants to warn Derek, and she talks to Naomi about that. But Naomi is like, no, you cannot tell Derek what's going on because it will endanger Jacob and Grayson and possibly put Derek in danger. But Ashley wants to do that because she knows that Leah has her sights on this clinic where Derek is now working. So let's see. A little later, we see Ashley and Grayson interacting at the hospital. Now, mind you, they are supposed to be broken up and they put on this great show where Ashley slapped fire out of Grayson just to put on for Leah to throw her off, and they were successful in that. And so they're talking, and Grayson asks Ashley how she is, and she's like, I'm okay. I'm just pretending not to be terrified. And, Ashley doesn't think that Leah is there, so she thinks they have time to talk. And Grace is like, no, Leah is here. I saw her earlier, so be aware. And, he's basically telling Ashley not to worry about him anymore because he just doesn't deserve it. Because Grace is not a bad guy. He just got caught up and he wants to protect Ashley. So, they start to get a little too close to this conversation, and Naomi is like, and she has to clear her throat to get them back on track. And so Grace is like, I shouldn't be talking to you. And he goes on about his business. Ashley still wants to know what's going on, but she restrains herself and Grayson goes on to wherever he's going. So then we also see Elon is in the hospital. We don't know why. At that moment, he runs into Naomi, and she's just like, oh my God, there's something wrong with Jacob. She doesn't know why he's there. And he's like, no, I'm just here on some police work. And Naomi just tells Elon how horrible this has been. And he's like, I know, and he is able to comfort her a little bit because Naomi does not have a lot of people to talk to about this. Ashley knows, Elon knows, Darlene knows, Jacob. Yeah, Naomi doesn't know the extent that Smitty is involved, and so Naomi has just been having a hard time dealing with it. So Elon comforts her just a little bit, and then he goes on about his business. So then we see Marcel has summoned Leah to the precinct because he wants to talk to her about something he has discovered as he is still working on this hacking case. So Leah is hesitant because she and Marcel already know each other, and Marcel had agreed to look into the hacking as a favor. And so she's a little spooked at the fact that they are out in public talking about this, especially at the precinct. And so Marcel is just like showing her the footage, and he has questions because he notices a few blips in the security footage. So the first blip she can explain away because it was something with testing, whatever. But the second blip she can't. And so Leah's questioning, like, well, why are you looking past the dates of the hacking incident? Because that's all you're supposed to be looking at. And Marcel is just like, I'm doing my due diligence and I'm just looking for patterns and glitches. Can you explain what's going on? Because Marcel's like, I think someone deliberately turned these cameras off. Can you account for these outages? So Leah's playing dumb. And she's just like, oh, I can't think of any reasons why. And she makes up a reason just to get out of there, basically. And before she leaves, Marcel's like, okay, well, I'm going to continue to do some digging. So we can see Leah don't want that. So whatever, she goes on about her business. Elon comes back to the precinct and he and Marcel are able to catch up. So at this point, Jacob has also called Elon and gave him the update on there's going to be a huge meeting tomorrow night. I'm going to meet the impaler. I'm going to leave a door open, like propped open for you guys. That'll be your signal to come in and basically strike and get the impaler. So Elon is pleased. You know, he's been worried for his son and he's just happy that this is coming to a close. And so when he meets up with Marcel, he updates Marcel on what Jacob has accomplished. And Marcel is like, you know what? Jacob did a good job for his first major case. And maybe I should have kept him as a partner. So that is actually high praise coming from Marcel because he does not like Jacob. He is too squeaky clean. And Marcel is one of these cricket cops, you know, whatever. So that was cool to see. And Elon's like, yeah, you know, I'm proud of him as well. So then Elon also follows up on how things went with Leah because come to find out, Marcel purposely called Leah down to the precinct to allow Elon time to investigate at the hospital without Leah being aware. And so Marcel says that he knows Leah tampered with this footage. He just can't prove it yet, but he thinks Leah's gonna slip up soon. And Elon is pleased with that. So everything seems to be going well with the impaler situation and Leah's involvement. So we will wait to see what happens there. So then Grayson has gone to the lab to do his volunteer work that Leah told him he was going to do. And he's in the area where the blood is, and I believe it is locked in a safe. And so we see Grayson like thinking, okay, what would the password be? So he's in there thinking, and Eva walks up behind him and she's like, oh, what can I help you with? Like, what are you looking for? And so he startled, but he covers well because this is the first time he and Eva are officially meeting. You know, Eva has heard of Grayson through Derek because Derek was like, I don't want this man here. And Eva was like, why? And he explained why. And then Naomi and Ashley happened to come into Orpheus that day. And Ashley was like, basically, Derek's just a hater. And so Eva was like, man, whatever. Like, we need the volunteers. Don't reject anyone. And then Leah went directly to Leslie to force Grayson to be a volunteer because Grayson told Leah, you know, Derek doesn't trust me. He denied me. So she went over his head to make sure he was in that clinic. So, whatever. So, Grayson and Eva are meeting and they're very pleasant. They introduced themselves to each other. And he was like, oh, I'm just trying to orient myself here. And thank you so much for the work that you're doing and what your mom's doing. And Eva thanked him for his specialty because they need people like him volunteering at the clinic. So then she was like, once again, like, oh, well, what can I do to help? And he was like, oh, I'm just trying to get into the safe here, but I don't know the passcode. And she was like, oh, that's fine. And so she punches it in right in front of Grayson, who is looking on. So now he has all of the information that he needs. And let's see. Leah returns to the hospital. She runs into Ashley and she lets Ashley know that she has been on her mind because Leah is out to get Ashley because she does not want any loose ends being tied to Grayson and she doesn't want anyone else to know. So Ashley is quick on her feet and she thanks Leah for encouraging the separation between personal and professional life. And she basically says that she will keep all boundaries. So Leah is seemingly pleased with this and they don't have any other issue. So the last part of this story, we see Vanessa coming off the elevator and she is there to meet with Leah. So Leah wants to talk expansion and she wants to work very closely with the clinic. And so Leah is using the fact that this clinic was dedicated in honor of Doug's legacy. So once Vanessa hears that this woman wants to really get involved and she talks about how great Doug was at the hospital and how respected he was. Once Vanessa hears all of that, she is ready to talk expansion. So they go off to Leah's office and that's all we see. So, as I said, this plasma ring should be wrapping up very soon, hopefully next week. And yeah, so the next thing we saw was the cotillion prep. Okay, so we opened with Martin and Tyrell and Nicole being on the phone. So Nicole calls Martin to update him on the run in Samantha had with Anastasia and Francesca. So he's finishing up that phone call, and Tyrell comes down the steps and he overhears and he's like, oh, what did the princess do now? Because Tyrell is still pissed with Samantha for blabbing about him trying to get fresh with his girlfriend in the house and how it was a double standard and blah, blah, blah. So that led to Tyrell being punished, which should have happened since we're being fair because he's not out of the house yet and he broke the rules, period. So then this turns into a birds and the bees conversation because Martin's just basically like, you don't want you guys' first time to be rushed and not special. This is where Tyrell is like, well, actually, Jessica has already been deflowered. And so he is the virgin here. But Martin's like, still, you don't want your first time to not be special and you should just protect yourself. So they're finishing up that conversation because Tyrell is real hot in his pants because Jessica's about to go off to UCLA and he's staying local at Banneker. So they're finishing up that conversation with Samantha enters. Very dramatic. I live. She had a little scarf on her head, like a 1950s thing. She had a little sunshade. She had a little bags in her hand from shopping. And she tells the people she is done with the cotillion. And Martin's like, don't let a bunch of spoiled socialites hold you back from what you've been preparing for this long. And Samantha's going back and forth. And little does she know, Eva is on her heels because Eva has agreed to help Samantha get ready for the cotillion. This is her niece, and Eva used to do hair, and so she is able to use that passion for good for her niece, and she's also getting Jessica and June together for the cotillion. So Eva has been running around all day getting prepped for this, and she walks in and hears Samantha talking about how she's done it. Eva was like, nope, that attitude won't fly. And it was a great scene because Eva has also come from the wrong side of the tracks, as she explained. So she was just like from one girl born on the other side of the tracks to another. What we have that these uppity people don't have is grit. And these people should be grateful and are lucky to have people like Samantha and Tyrell in their community. And Tyrell agrees and he props his sister up too. I mean, Eva was great in this scene, okay? She was like, you, Samantha, are gonna show these people exactly who you are, and you are not less than. And I love that. I love the positivity. The whole family was rallying, okay? And Samantha was like, you're right. That's right. Because Samantha, I feel, is willing to listen more to Eva in this situation because Eva understands explicitly because she did not grow up rich like the rest of these people. So it was great to see. And then Martin was so thankful to Eva. He was like, thank you so much for talking to her. He wishes her an early happy birthday. And he invites her to the cotillion again because I'm sure she was invited before, but it's not really her jam. And her birthday coincides with the cotillion. So Martin's like, are you sure you don't want to come? I don't want you missing out on any more family events. We would love to have you. And he was like, thank you for the invite, but it's really not my jam. And this is how I am contributing with by prepping Samantha, Jessica, and June. So it was just really nice to see because this is what it's all about at the end of the day. Family, connection, and being there for each other. And I feel this soap does a great job of doing that. So I loved it. It was my favorite scene. So then Smitty finally comes home with dinner and he is being brought up to speed about what happened with Francesca and Anastasia. And he's like, not my baby. I know that's right, Smitty. So Smitty and Martin pour into both of their children. But once again, like piggybacking on what Eva said and how they are worth it and how they have never been viewed as outsiders or less than when they were brought into this family, and they are Dupree's through and through, and a name and status is not what is important, and it is not what makes you who you are. So I love that too. And then Tyrell, he presented his sister with a gift. They are this beautiful pair of diamonds and pearl earrings. And he starts reminiscing. He was like, when we were growing up, I remember you always saying how you wanted to have diamonds in your ears and like you were going to be a star. And he told Samantha that she will always be a star to him. And he's just like, oh my God, today. It was so sweet. These kids usually irk my soul, but I love that family on that day. Kudos to them. So Martin and Smitty are very proud of the both of them. I am proud too, and they all can't wait until tomorrow, which is when the cotillion will start. So the final chunk of stories that we saw centered on Ted, Shanice's aunt, Shanice, Nicole, and Vanessa. So Ted has called Shanice's aunt because he needs a favor, because he tells the aunt that Shanice is running scared and she needs to be set straight. So the aunt is like, well, what is going on? What do you do? And Ted said that he made a mistake with sleeping with someone before Shanice and Ted were together. So the aunt automatically assumes that he's talking about Nicole, the woman he was married to for decades. So she was like, well, it was before. So then Ted clarifies, well, I'm not talking about Nicole. And so the aunt was like, oh, you talking about that other baby mother, because she hates Leslie too, and she had to get her together the other month. And Leslie did not have a rebuttal, and I loved it. Anyways, so the aunt is making sure, like, well, do you have any residual feelings for this woman? Is there any chance this can happen again? And Ted was quick. No, I will never, ever, ever, ever sleep with her again. And the aunt was like, well, all right. You answered that very quickly and very firmly. So, all right, I will talk to Shanice, because Ted's like, Shanice has it in her head that he is going to circle back to Dana Leslie and he wants to squash that as best he can. So then he calls Shanice at the front desk and he's like, can you come in my office? And she's like, yes, Dr. Richardson, I will come in there as soon as I have a chance. Click, because she is still giving him the cold shoulder. She don't want to hear it. She don't care. So Shanice goes into the office and she's surprised to see her aunt. She's like, oh, what are you doing here? And Ted ain't even here. What's going on? So then the aunt starts talking to Shanice and she's just like, why are you hiding in plain sight? Because the aunt knows that Shanice is really into Ted and she's just scared. So Shanice says she's not hiding, but then the aunt is just like, well, why haven't you like included Ted in other events like your mother's birthday party that we did? And she questions if Shanice is projecting because she's afraid of getting hurt. And she's like, she has her rebuttals, but the aunt like, look, you need to be 100% sure, because at this point, it seems like Shanice just has it in her head that she and Ted will not work out. And so the aunt is like, you need to be 100% sure about this unless you want to shut out a relationship that you clearly want. And the aunt talks about leaving love on the table in her own personal life because after her divorce from her first husband, she met a man and she liked him very much, and vice versa. But she let her family basically talk her out of it because the grandmother and the rest of the family didn't approve. And so the aunt let love go to appease her family. And she does not want something similar happening to her niece, because she's just like, you have to not be afraid to fall hard and to fall fast, because Shanice wants a safety net. But the aunt is like, damn the net, okay? She's like, take it to the limit. And basically, everyone has a past. It is what it is. You either want the man or you don't. So we don't know what Shanice is gonna do, but that was basically the advice that was given. And I agree with the aunt. Like, either be all in or just, you can't be scared. So yeah. So then we also saw earlier in the episode, we saw Nicole and Vanessa catching up at the country club. This is after, Samantha Gate, not Samantha Gate, Anastasia Gate. So, they are catching up on that because Vanessa and Nicole were pissed. And I agree. So, then they're talking about previous debuts and how horrible Anastasia was then and how it was when Kat was becoming a debutante. And Nicole starts reminiscing about past Ted, because she cherishes those times. So then Vanessa with her freak, so I like it though. She was like, so is Ted still appearing at inopportune moments? She is referring to these fantasies that Nicole has had, because to date she has had two fantasies about Ted. But no, I think Vanessa only knows about the first fantasy, which happened when Nicole was in bed with Carlton. She started fantasizing about Ted. Okay. So this is when Nicole tells Vanessa about her latest fantasy about Ted in the hallway of the club. And Vanessa was like, yes, ma'am. She wants to know all of the dirt, and she wants to know which of Nicole's paramours get to take her to the ball. So they are in the middle of talking about all of this and the public sex of it all in the fantasy. And Vanessa was like, ooh, that's very high on my scorchometer. And then why does Ted walk up right when she talking about a scorchometer? And Ted is like, well, what y'all talking about? And Nicole says, well, it's impolite to eavesdrop. Because she's trying to cover, and then she's trying to assess, like, well, what did you hear? So Vanessa does a great job covering. She just out of the blue asked this man, so how do you feel about public sex, Ted? And he was like, he ran off to that gym. So he leaves the table very quickly, and Nicole and Vanessa are just like, how much do you think he heard? Do you think he knows what we're talking about? And Nicole was like, no, I can still read that, man. And Vanessa's like, I bet you can. And she is still encouraging Nicole to make these fantasies real, because in Vanessa's mind, she like, this is an itch you need to scratch just so you can get past it. I agree, because I'm like, you're going to keep scratching the itch, in my opinion. But whatever. I'm enjoying this conversation nonetheless. So Nicole excuses herself from the table, just like she did the other day, because she had to go to the bathroom, I guess. And when she comes out, who is she met with again? Teddy Weddy in his tank top and his basketball shorts. So Ted immediately starts apologizing to Nicole. He's just like, I'm sorry for overstepping and being nosy, but Nicole ain't heard a word, because the fantasy is back. She starts reliving the same fantasy that she just told Vanessa about, because Nicole also said at the table, she and Ted's issue was never sex, it was the secrets. So Nicole is lost in this fantasy again, and Ted's like, hello, are you okay? You act like you've seen a ghost. And Nicole is flustered, and she's like, yeah, I'm okay. And then she's just like, oh, I gotta go. We'll see each other later. And she runs off. So that is basically it with that whole storyline. We know the cotillion is coming up next week, and we know that Nicole plans on going solo. And Ted should be going solo too. So I think this will be a perfect time for Ted and Nicole to possibly reunite in some way, or that will get derailed if he invites Shanice. I think I Yes. One more thing happened with the plasma storyline, and it's kind of how we ended as well. So Jacob called Naomi and he was telling her how he thinks the case is gonna wrap up soon because there's a big meeting happening tomorrow night. She's like, "Oh my God, I'm so relieved. Like, do you know exactly when this will be over?" And he's like, "No," but he promises on his life he will be home soon. I am hoping this is not some type of foreshadowing regarding something bad happening to Jacob because he's so close to being done. But there's so many people wrapped in this case. Literally anyone can get got at this point. So that was one thing that stood out to me. I'm hoping they don't do anything to Jacob. And that's basically it for what happened on Friday. So I am ready for this cotillion. I am ready for the wrapping up of this impaler case. Who do y'all think is the impaler? Do you think it's Joey, or are we going to get a new character? Even though it wouldn't make sense to bring in a new character just to arrest them, right? So let us see what is going to happen on Monday. I will see you guys then. Like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss what's next.